Good afternoon. Welcome to Tavistock Square, London. Hello to those who join us sat on the seats in front of me and those online for our annual chance to pause, reflect and be thankful for all who resist the drumbeat of war and choose to walk the path of peace. Over the course of our time together, there will be words, music, silence and statements, and we are grateful for all organisation and movements who have offered words in, and to the Raise Voices choir who will lift our spirits and minds throughout. Today we will mix historic with the current, recognising in this 80th year of peace returning to Europe that even amid the noise of war, there are those who bravely walked a different way. So to ground our gathering, we hear The Ones Who Said No by Sue Gil-Murray.
We'll talk of past glories, raise our brave armies with pride all aglow. Lovers of peace, praising fighters of battles, never a word for the ones who said no. Never a word for the ones who said no. When the call comes from their king and their country, most will relinquish the power to choose. High-sounding words urge them on towards duty. Few are the people who dare to refuse. Yes, it takes courage to march into battle. Go where authority tells you to go. Whether as butchers or lambs to the slaughter, courage no less had the ones who said no. Courage no less had the ones who said no. Scorned and despised in a culture of warfare, in many lands they are suffering still. Branded as worthless, as cowards, as traitors, punished for simply refusing to kill. Proud politicians and posturing generals stand on their dunghills and mightily crow. If they were stripped of their plumage, we'd see them shamed by the fate of the ones who said no. Shamed by the fate of the ones who said no. Ask people what are their hopes for the future. Likelihood is they will say they want peace. Yet pin their hopes upon weapons and armies, even as damage and danger increase. Look back to those who have dared to be different. Over the world let their clear courage flow. Army unarmed, let it swell yes to peace with the ones who said no. Cry yes to peace with the ones who said no. Amen.
Earlier this spring, I was listening to an audiobook telling stories of some of the radical and challenging women who lived in a house in a square like this in central London. We may see it now as a space of grandeur, opulence, and richness. Yet if you open up the curtains of history on many of the streets and alleyways around here, you encounter radical, political, religious, humanitarian, and free-thinking people. Their actions for peace and justice challenge and transform the world. But the stories of peacemakers are never simple. Our next speaker is Dr. Rosemary Rich, who's doing some absolutely brilliant research, in part inspired by stories from her own family, which draw upon life histories of conscientious objectors, to explore the unique pressures and psychological challenges those who refuse can face, both in the moment they choose to refuse and in the long, hard path afterwards of living out the values they are determined to stand by.
Hello, very pleased to be here today to talk to you about my research and my grandfather. So, in April 1940, a 26-year-old man named received his call-up papers. He knew immediately that instead of accepting the order to join the armed forces, he would register as a conscientious objector. Eric was one of 60,000 other men and 1,000 women who refused military service during the Second World War. This is 3 times the number of the First World War, when COs numbered around 20,000. It was also the first time that women had been conscripted. Yet, COs are largely missing from the public memory of the Second World War in Britain, and they've been pretty neglected in the historical literature also. Eric Hope, who I mentioned at the start, a picture of him here, was my grandfather. His story inspired my PhD research on conscientious objection in Second World War Britain. Eric died when I was a young child, but his experience has always been spoken about proudly within my family. We are also fortunate in that he kept a large collection of documents and letters from the war. This includes the speech he made to the tribunal, which tells us exactly why he objected to military service. Eric was a socialist and member of the Independent Labour Party, who did not believe that workers should kill their fellows in other countries. Although the majority of COs had religious motivations during the Second World War, political and humanitarian CO motives were also accepted. And Britain was actually unique amongst the warring nations for not requiring a formal religious affiliation for recognition of conscience, although religious motivations were most persuasive to the tribunal. In his statement, Eric made it very clear that he had played an active role in the interwar peace movement as a member of the Peace Pledge Union and other pacifist organisations. The interwar peace movement was the largest ever seen in Britain before or since. It grew up in reaction to the horror of the First World War and to try to prevent a future war that promised to be even more terrible than the last. Anti-war feeling was pervasive in Britain in the interwar period, and that's something that's often forgotten in light of kind of what happened afterwards. So, my grandfather was deemed to be a genuine, conscientious objector by the tribunal and granted exemption on condition that he take up work of national importance. And he found employment doing forestry work. But COs did many different things, including working for medical services, on civil defence duties, or even down the mines. For some, such as members of the French ambulance unit, their alternative service took them abroad to the theatres of war. Others, however, refused to have anything to do with the war machine, and they could be sent to prison. Although the COs of the Second World War were treated more tolerantly than those of the First, my research has shown that being a CO was still very challenging, especially psychologically. These individuals could feel extremely isolated, as by taking their stand they had separated themselves from the rest of society, engaged in a total war. It could also be challenging to stick firm to your position over several years through the tumultuous events of the war, and my grandfather certainly felt this, and he suffered with his mental health. And COs still did experience hostility as well. This included negative treatment in the press, and some employers dismissing COs, as well as hostility from members of the public or friends and family members. And my grandfather was actually given a white feather by his mother, a symbol of cowardice, and she pressured him to enlist. And this was despite the fact that the government actually explicitly called for the tolerant treatment of COs during the war, which was seen as an important part of the moral distinction between Britain and Nazi Germany. Indeed, COs in Germany faced almost certain death during the war. According to Peter Brock, their treatment remains unparalleled in its harshness, at any rate within recent centuries. And although other Allied countries such as America, Canada, Australia and New Zealand accepted COs, they were not treated as tolerantly as the UK. So this is an aspect of British history that we can be proud of, and a reason why COs need to be fitted firmly back into our national story of the Second World War. I was pleased that the BBC included COs in their coverage of the 80th anniversary of VE Day last week, but there's much more to be done in raising awareness of this group amongst the public, and that's what I try to do with my work. And whilst Second World War COs may have been somewhat forgotten, however, they are certainly remembered within the peace movement, in which they continue to play an important role after the war. And my research has shown that the memory of Second World War COs has also been kept alive within families, and anti-war attitudes and activism also often passed down the generations. And this is one of the ways in which COs of the Second World War have left a lasting legacy, which will continue to be felt into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. The legacy of war is challenging. At the moment, 1 in 8 people are estimated to be exposed to conflict. 50 countries around the world have extreme, high or turbulent levels of conflict. Palestine, Myanmar, Syria and Mexico are the areas of most intense conflict, and 81% of Palestine's population is estimated to live within constant conflict. We live in a world of endless cycles of violence, increased military spending robbing countries of resources, welfare and opportunity, killing and polluting the planet. Yet today we stand to recognise those who refuse to take part in this vile machine. So we're going to hear stories from today, gathered and sent through the Quakers, Peace Union and other global networks that uphold and support all who decide to resist the war machine. We are first going to hear from Russia, Thailand and Israel. Then we will hear some letters turned into a song before travelling to Ukraine, Turkey and South Korea. So let's start with Russia.
Hello. The following is an excerpt from a testimony written by a young Russian man we'll call Sasha, not his real name. On a cold morning of 30th of September 2022, I stood in a Moscow metro station, my heart racing as 2 police officers asked for my documents. I was to be taken to a police station for document verification, but I knew what that meant. My name had been placed on the recruitment list, and the life I once knew was slipping away. What followed were hours of terror. I was taken to the mobilisation centre, surrounded by police on a bus filled with recruits. I refused to accept my situation. I tried to appeal the decision of my mobilisation, hoping to be granted alternative civil service instead. I filed a formal request. but it was ignored. Despite my efforts, I was deployed. From a young age, I understood the power of kindness and how it could transform not only others, but me as well. As a teenager, watching documentaries on World War II deeply affected me. I promised myself I would always offer a helping hand to those in need and never hurt anyone intentionally. Even during my deployment, I tried to hold on to my beliefs. I was surrounded by brutality, oppression and injustice, but I refused to become a part of it. I offered whatever kindness I could. I helped people where possible and treated them with empathy and respect, even when everything around me felt hopelessly dark. However, despite these small acts of kindness, the mental strain of being part of something I fundamentally disagreed with was unbearable. I managed to escape. Now I live in Georgia. The experiences I've endured have reshaped my life and goals. I am now dedicated to ending this unjust war and working towards a future where Russians can live freely and happily without fear or oppression. I feel a profound empathy for those still trapped in Russia, forced to surrender their moral beliefs just to survive. My hope is for a future where such choices are no longer necessary. Your support will be invaluable to me.
A message from Thailand. My name is Netivit Chotifat Faisal. I'm a conscientious objector from Thailand. In my country, military conscription is still enforced. Young men are expected to surrender their bodies to the state, but I have chosen a different path. I refuse conscription not out of fear, but out of conviction. I reject the idea that peace must come through violence, that obedience is more important than conscience. Militaristic values permeate Thai society, not only in the barracks, but in our classrooms, in our politics, in how young people are taught to think and express themselves. These values make true education, democracy and freedom of expression difficult to achieve. Our objective is to resist that mindset, and instead we say our lives should not be tools of war, our minds not moulded by fear. On this International Conscientious Objectors Day, I stand in solidarity with objectors around the world, those who refuse to kill, those who choose compassion over conformity. Our stance may be lonely, even dangerous, but it is also necessary. Because conscience is not weakness, it is strength, and it may yet be the seed of a more just and peaceful world.
This is from a recent letter put out by high school students in Israel. Every kid in Israel knows exactly what the trajectory of their early lives will look like. School, military service, and only then stepping out into the real world. Why is carrying a firearm treated like just another subject in school? What interests and policies are we serving when we enlist in the army? Since the beginning of the war, we've been told that we're fighting for the sake of survival and that there is no choice but to attack. We're told that this military solution will bring back the hostages and guarantee our safety, and that there is no other alternative. After over a year and a half at war, we understand that the narrative the state has been preaching to us is nothing but an illusion. Beneath the promise of annihilating Hamas, the government has exacted a senseless campaign of revenge against the Palestinian people. As of now, at least 50,000 people have been killed in Gaza. 70% of them are women and children. Hostages are being killed in captivity while a deal is on the table. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are being displaced from their homes in the West Bank, and over 800 Israeli soldiers have died during battle. It's been made clear that the first of all priorities in this military campaign is the occupation and murder of the Palestinian people. Above our safety, above all hope for a diplomatic solution, and above peace. This is not the will of the people, so why should we keep reporting for service? There is no military solution. There never will be. We refuse to take part in the front lines, in the medical corps, in intelligence, and also in the office. We refuse to be a cog in the machine that fuels bloodshed, and instead we will create a reality of justice, freedom and equality, which we know is possible. We call on every teenager to question what they know. In the name of change, we choose to refuse, for the sake of change.
Our next song is called We Refuse. As the last speaker said, Israeli teenagers are refusing to be conscripted. This particular song was based on the words of a group of 63 teenagers who wrote an open letter in 2018. The song was taken for inspiration by Jane Lewis, who wrote this song, and it was arranged for us in 3 parts by our musical leader Jake Alexander. Jane Lewis's original beautiful song is in 4 parts, but we've got 3 parts here today, so we're singing a slightly different version. But the important message, we refuse, is being taken up by other people in Israel, and we've heard that increasingly reservists are refusing to serve in Gaza. So we refuse.
We refuse to serve the occupation. We refuse to take part in oppression. We are not prepared to take up guns anymore. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. For we are bound by the values of justice, peace, equality, and will not lend a hand to a racist government policy. We will not be drafted to serve in the army. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse to serve the occupation. We refuse to take part in oppression. We are not prepared to take up guns anymore. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We know there is another reality we can create together. We will not be denied this possibility. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse to serve the occupation. We refuse
to take part in oppression. We are not prepared to take up guns anymore. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. For we are bound by the values of justice, peace, equality, and will not lend a hand to a racist government policy. We will not be drafted to serve in the army. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse to serve the occupation. We refuse to take part in oppression. We are not prepared to take up guns anymore. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends. We refuse conscription till the occupation ends.
From an interview with Andrei Konovalov, a Ukrainian based in Germany. In Ukrainian society, we are currently experiencing pressure being exerted on men. They are supposed to be real men. There is moral pressure to take part in war, to wage war, to defend your country. This is especially true for male war refugees. It is seen as a betrayal to have simply left Ukraine. If they have managed to get here, it is of course easier to simply remain silent. If they have fled to safety from the war, then it is more important simply to be able to live here in Europe. Fear for their families too. They are worried that their families will be put under pressure if they speak out publicly. I have many friends in Ukraine who are threatened with conscription into the war. Almost nobody wants that. They try to avoid it and not be called up. I don't have that risk at the moment. When I look at the situation in Ukraine, the situation of some of my friends, it is clear to me that I want to be part of a movement in favor of conscientious objection. It is obvious how ruinous it is for a society to be forced into military service. It is very important for me to have a concept of how my country will develop, in what form Ukraine can exist and develop sustainably. After 2 years of war, after hundreds of thousands of deaths on both sides, it is clear to see that armaments, weapons, and war itself cannot achieve the goals of the military-minded politicians. Dialogue is the only alternative. It will have to be a dialogue with a willingness to compromise. That is the only way to improve the situation and create security. What is now being presented to us as having no alternative, war, has proven to be ineffective.
This is a message from İnanmayız Arı from Turkey. My name is İnanmayız Arı. I'm a conscientious objector from Turkey. I declared my refusal of military service in 2008, not only as a personal decision, but as a political stance against the militarist, nationalist, and patriarchal structures that dominate life in Turkey. Turkey has no legal recognition of conscientious objection. Those who refuse to fight are subjected to what is called civil death. We are denied legal employment, the right to vote, and access to basic services such as social security and health insurance. We face repeated prosecutions and live under constant legal threat. I have been prosecuted multiple times, sentenced, fined, and placed under probation, simply for acting according to my conscience. Despite applying to the Constitutional Court in 2017, there has still been no ruling. This delay blocks my right to appeal to the European Court of Human Rights, effectively silencing legal recourse. Many objectors are pushed into poverty or forced into exile, and even then they face new challenges, as many countries still do not recognize conscientious objection as a valid ground for asylum. From Palestine to Myanmar, from Ukraine to Sudan, wars continue to destroy lives, cultures, and futures. We stand in solidarity with all those affected by the horrors of militarism in their lands. Conscientious objection is not just a personal right, it's a global act of resistance against war. The message is clear: say no to organized violence, and yes to justice, dignity, and peace. Thank you for standing with us.
This message is from Kim Myung, a conscientious objector from South Korea. Today, on International Conscientious Objectors Day, we are here to share our hearts for peace and human rights. The martial law situation that occurred in South Korea in December 2024 was a significant moment for us. At that time, the passive resistance of South Korean soldiers and the non-violent resistance of the citizens became the decisive force in stopping martial law. This vividly showed the power we have when we stand in solidarity and resist together. Conscientious objection is not simply an individual's choice, but a powerful cry and action for peace and human rights. We firmly hold on to the belief that we can resolve problems through dialogue and peaceful means, not by force. When our voices are gathered as one, they can create a greater echo. Witnessing the courageous activities of each of you in your respective places, and the many people who have quietly continued their conscientious objection in South Korea for a long time, I too was able to decide to object. I would like to sincerely thank you all. I continue to stand in solidarity with you all in future. What we can imagine, we can make real. So let's never stop imagining more peace. Thank you.
This is not the only gathering happening today. One that's probably already happened, if my knowledge of time zones is correct, is in New Zealand. And we received a message from the Baxter Memorial Trust, which I'll read an excerpt from for you. Otago farmer Archibald Baxter was determined never to become a cog in an imperial killing machine. Yet he and 13 other conscientious objectors in 1917 were kidnapped by the New Zealand Army and shipped off to France, where they were threatened, beaten, starved and tortured for refusing to wear military uniform. He endured field punishment number 1 on the front lines and was pushed to the limits of human suffering. He said, "I have suffered to the limits of my endurance, but I will never in my sane senses surrender to the evil power that fixed its roots like cancer on the world." The Baxter Memorial Trust and all those involved in the event gather to remember all 800 detained for the duration of the Second World War and those detained in the First World War in New Zealand. They conclude their message to us saying, "The pacifist voice is needed more than ever. The world will not be peaceful until peacemakers everywhere declare their absolute opposition to all state and non-state sponsored violence. This is a time for maximum solidarity between organisations like ours. United, we can make a difference. If we are divided, the forces of Thanatos will hold sway. Thanks for all your good work for a more peaceful world. And once again, greetings from the other side of the world for the success of your commemoration in Tavistock Square." So whichever stories, people, place or time brought you here today, we will have some time to remember them. we will hear a reading of names created to name every single country where there had been a conscientious objector. If you have a flower and you hear the name of the country being read, bring it up and lay it at the front. The list is alphabetical. And if you've come and written your own tag, at the end of the list, you're very welcome to come and lay your flower. Let's think, celebrate and remember all those who say no to war.
Algeria. Soufiana Babu, imprisoned in 2011 and since disappeared. Angola. Emmanuel Matondo, a recent conscientious. Argentina. Christian Lassalle, one of 5 who made a public presentation of conscientious objection in August 1993. Armenia. David Nazaretian, imprisoned for 2 years in August 2024. Armenia, Nagorno-Karabakh, Areg Avanesian, imprisoned for 4 years, 2005. Australia, Charles Edward Martin, imprisoned in 1970. Austria, Josef Moises, imprisoned for 5 years as a disobedient soldier, World War I. Austria, Anschluss, Franz Jägerstätter, beheaded, Berlin, 9th of August 1943. Austria post-1945, Christian Schwarz was refused conscientious objection recognition in 1989. Azerbaijan, Saimur Mamadov, imprisoned for 12 weeks and a year probation in 2023.
Belarus, Devarashin Vitali, imprisoned in Lithuania in the year 2023. Belgium, Jean van Lierde, imprisoned in 1950. Bermuda, Rod Atreed Sterling, finally recognised by Court of Appeal 1996. Britain, Connie Bowen, the first woman imprisoned as a conscientious objector, January 1942, Newcastle. Bulgaria, Kostadin Angelov Kalmakov, imprisoned 1986. Canada, R.G. Brooks, imprisoned for 8 months in 1946. Chile, Javier Harata, publicly declared conscientious objector early in the 2000s. China, Xing Jitong, arrested for publicly burning his military uniform in 1989. Colombia, Diego Fernando Blanco Lopez, forcibly held within the military, 2017.
Croatia, Tiomir Campanello, objected in 1999. Cyprus, Greek, Theocharis Theocharidis, imprisoned for 2 months in 1991. Soglu, imprisoned for a 3rd time in May 2024. Czechoslovakia, Tomasz Krivanek, imprisoned in 1986. Denmark, Lauritz Larsen, refused in 1962. Egypt, Michael Nabil Sanad, first recorded conscientious objector, imprisoned for 3 years, the 11th of April 2011, for insulting the military. Eritrea, Negede Teldemariam, imprisoned continuously from 1994 to 2020. Finland, Jukka Mikael Johansson, imprisoned 197 days for resistance to punitive alternative service in 1999. France, Louis Lecoin, pioneer conscientious objector, imprisoned in 1917. Georgia, Kakabek Galashvili, imprisoned for 16 months in 1996.
Germany, August Dickmann, executed in Sachsenhausen, 15th of September 1939. Germany East, Gunther Fritsch, imprisoned in 1965. Germany West, Christoph Bausenwein, imprisoned 1986. Greece, Michalis Merakakis, imprisoned for 26 months, 1988. Hungary, Barnak Sontos, imprisoned 1986. Isle of Man, Harold Lilly, imprisoned 1916. Israel, Sophia Or, aged 19, jailed for 85 days in February 2024. Israel Druze, Salman Salameh, in military detention 2002. Italy, Pietro Pinna, pioneer conscientious objector, imprisoned 1949. Japan, Shuji Hirayama, attempted to refuse orders, World War II.
Kazakhstan, Daniil Smar, 6 months in prison, 2023. Korea South, S.H. Choi, imprisoned for 18 months in 2014. Kyrgyzstan, Dmitry Shukov, detained in psychiatric hospital in the year 2001. Latvia, Roman Nemiro, objected in 2000. Lithuania, Kaloris Budanis, imprisoned several long terms from 1936. Netherlands, Jacob Vinhier, imprisoned for 3 years in 1950. New Caledonia, Gilbert Vealimoa, imprisoned 4 months before recognition in 1989. New Zealand, Garth Ballantyne, transported to Britain, then France, sentenced to 5 years imprisonment and mistreated in 1917. Norway, Niels Smitsand, imprisoned 1970.
Paraguay, Venancio Vera, one of 3 conscientious objectors, abducted and beaten by members of the National Police, then 4 days of forced labour, February 1995. The Philippines, Lagman, objected in 1966. Poland, Darlusz Maciek, imprisoned for a year in 1993. Portugal, Paulo Mitomens de Matros, objected in 1977. Puerto Rico, Philip Howard, arrested in 1949. Rhodesia, Richard Knottenbelt, imprisoned for 5 months in 1977. Roman Emperor Maximilianus, beheaded Thevesta, North Africa, the 12th of March 295. Romania, Alexandra Tion, 5 sentences of 2 years each from the 1920s to the 1930s. Russia, Maxim Alexandrovich Kuchevkov, sentenced to 13 years in a strict regime penal colony for refusing to fight in Ukraine, September 23. Serbia and Montenegro, Dragoslav Docic, objected in 2005. Agron Koraj resisted Serbian call-up 1990 and pressure to join the KLA in 1998. Singapore, Renon Cole Dawson Flores, military detention, 30 months, 2023.
Slovakia, Martin Bednar, imprisoned 1 year, 1997. Somalia, Saeed Mohammed, imprisoned 1984. South Africa, Richard Steele, imprisoned 1 year, 1980. Southwest Africa, Rashid Ruinasi, refused 1987. Spain, José Luis Pepe Beunza, imprisoned 1971. Spain, Basque Country, Alberto Estefania, imprisoned 4 months in the year 2000. Spain, Canary Islands, Rafael Valayon, imprisoned 1 year, 1993. Spain, Catalonia, Francesco Montenegro, imprisoned 2 years, 5 months and 1 day, 1995. Sweden, Per Johannes Klasse, Alternative Service, 1980s. Switzerland, Josef Benz, imprisoned in 1950.
Tajikistan, Yovidon Baboinov, imprisoned October 2019 and tortured before pardon in November 2020. Taiwan, Xi Mingtai, imprisoned 1986. Thailand, Netivit Chopafat Faisal, we heard from him earlier, a long-standing objector charged with desertion in 2024. Turkey, Kamil Murat Demir, apprehended 76 times between 2016 and 2024 for draft evasion. Turkmenistan, Kurban Zakirov, sentenced to 9 years in labour colony in 1999. Ukraine, Dmytro Zelensky, sentenced to 3 years imprisonment in August 2023. USA, Tina Gananes, a Native American medic, left the military in 2004 after witnessing the horrors in Iraq. USSR, Chechnya, Anatoly Zhuk, detained in psychiatric hospital in 1988. USSR, Estonia, Erkki Luik, the first political conscientious objector, 18 months forced labour in 1989.
USSR Kyrgyzstan, Andrei Bil, imprisoned in 1984. USSR Moldova, Nikolai Ryzhkov, imprisoned in 1986. USSR Russia, Dmitry Argonov, distributed leaflets explaining objection in 1985. USSR Ukraine, Sergei Ozhnakh, 18 months forced labour in 1991. Venezuela, Rafael Uzcategui objected in the 1990s. Yugoslavia, the former, Ljubomir Petric, imprisoned for 8 years, 1963. Yugoslavia, the latter, Bojan Aleksov, discharged from the army as mentally unstable after refusing to fight in the Civil War in 1991.
Thank you. in our silence, we heard stories, we thought of people, yet the roar of traffic, the passing conversation, the wail of sirens remind us that life goes on. As we heard in a prayer vigil over Ukraine, even in wartime, someone still needs to feed the cat. So don't forget those words that you've heard today, the importance of solidarity and the strength of support gathered here and online by knowing you are not alone in your wish to resist war and build peace. Thank you each for attending, for taking time and travelling to be here. Thank you to the Anglican Pacifist Fellowship, to Conscience, Taxes for Peace, Not War, to the Fellowship of Reconciliation, to Forces Watch, to Movement for the Abolition of War, to Network for Peace, to Pax Christi, to Peace and Justice Scotland, to Peace Pledge Union, to Quakers in Britain, the Right to Refuse to Kill Group, War Resisters International, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, for being the core group that organises our gathering and encourages and nurtures a growing number of gatherings happening around the UK today. Thank you to MC Online Events and What I Call Productions for sound and vision online and in this garden here today. As with all events, it does cost some money to put on, so there are buckets somewhere and a link will be shared online. We are most grateful for all donations you can give. They go towards, among other things, the chairs that you are sat on, the sound system you are hearing us through, and the people ensuring people can join us online. We have shared stories and messages from many times and nations, all of which had to be translated into English. Our closing music reminds us of the universality of the wish for peace. It's called Peace, Salam, Shalom.
So this song is called Peace, Salam, Shalom. So I'm really bad at languages, so for other people like that out there, the words for peace in English, Arabic and Hebrew, Peace, Salam, Shalom. We sing it as a round and go on to sing a verses asking us to work towards peace in two parts. So Ros, who is leading it, will divide us into two parts. And if you'd like to join in, you could join in with that side or with this side, but it's not compulsory. Thank you.
So yes, we'll sing it in unison to start with. The tune is easy. The words change, but you can get the truth from me. I don't know if that helps. So you can in unison once, then this side carries on, that side waits a bit, and then I bring them in again. Yeah, and then I sing something different after this. Don't copy me. Copy them or them.
Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace,
Thank you all very much. We meet again, same time, same place, same date, the 15th of May next year. Until then, build community, build peace.